Hey, everybody. Just before you listen to this podcast, you should know that we completely spoil Strange New Worlds. So if you have not watched that show, you probably don't want to listen right now. So put your phone down or whatever you're listening to this podcast on, put it down, turn your TV on, go watch Strange New Worlds, and then come back. All right? We'll see you later. Thank you. Okay, hey, welcome to the Like Father, Like Daughter podcast. It's the show about shows. What do you think of that title?
I like
This
that.
is our first one, everybody. So, our first podcast. I'm Paul,
I'm Ariana.
and we're going to talk about today. Our title of our podcast is In the World of Strange New Worlds. That's right, we're going to talk about Strange New Worlds, the Star Trek show. So, just a little bit about us. We're a father and a daughter,
Yep.
and we have the same interests when it comes to shows and media and TV
Film in
and
general.
film in general and acting and stuff like that. So we're going to focus on our interests there. So that's the theme of this podcast, or of our podcast. Okay, so Strange New Worlds.
When did it come out?
This year, so 2022,
Okay.
right? So 2022, we had Strange New Worlds. What? Wait. Are we sure about that?
I'll look it up.
So we should look that up, because if it didn't come out, how many seasons have we seen? We've only seen one season. I think I'm confused because they had the Enterprise and Discovery.
Yeah.
So I think it is only 1 year at this point. So what do you think about Strange New Worlds so far?
I think it exceeded my expectations.
So how?
Okay, so it came out May 5th, 2022.
Okay, so May 5th, 2022 is when Strange New Worlds came out. Okay, cool.
So it's fairly new.
Fairly new.
So in comparison to Discovery, we've had two Star Trek series that have been going so far that are new. In comparison to Discovery, the storytelling is significantly better in the way that show don't tell kind of thing, where
Okay, so before you go further, what is show don't tell?
Yeah. So show don't tell is basically you are supposed to show the emotions of the characters, show the story, not tell it. Whereas if the character is just, I feel this way, you're not supposed to do that in film. And I think Discovery did that a lot. Whereas opposed to Strange New World, they have so much character development by showing us what the characters are like and how they react to certain situations within just a couple episodes.
Yeah, and I've joked about it actually. That Star Trek Strange New Worlds had more character development in 2 episodes than Discovery had in 3 seasons. But so let's back up a little bit. So Strange New Worlds has is the story of Captain Christopher Pike, who is technically the second in command, or the second captain of the Enterprise. The first captain of the Enterprise his name was Richard April.
Okay.
So that was when the Enterprise was first commissioned. We don't know much about that. He didn't have the Enterprise for long. Captain Pike, Christopher Pike, is the second captain of the Enterprise just before Kirk. And so it stars Anson Mount as Captain Christopher Pike, and who plays Spock? Do you remember?
No, I don't know the
We should have these details up on our screen before we talk about them. But anyway, we learn as we go with the podcast. Anyway, Zachary, no, Quinto was from those movies. Anyway,
it's a different Spock compared to the original series and the
Yeah.
the other new
So,
movies.
Anyway, the story of Strange New Worlds is that, it's kind of it's kind of just a show about,
What happens before Kirk?
yeah, it happens before Kirk, right?
Mm-hmm.
So there's some differences between the old show of, Star Trek, the original series, and this show.
Mm-hmm.
Some things you just have to kind of take.
Well, something that's nice about it is it's episodic.
Right. So Discovery was very much a plot driven for the whole season. So like if you were to take all those shows for one season and you could put them all together and make one movie out of it, right?
Yeah, basically.
But whereas like you said, Strange New Worlds kind of went back to that episodic.
Mm-hmm.
There's an element in the background of it.
So it's similar to Next Generation, where there's an overarching plot, but it's episodic in the way of something happens each episode, but then there's this overarching plot of the entire show.
Right, which I think was refreshing because Discovery was just it kind of dragged
cliffhanger
on.
After cliffhanger.
It was cliffhanger after cliffhanger. It's like, okay, what's going to happen next? Which if
it's a good way to keep people watching, but also having episodic is just satisfying.
Well, it is usually a good way to keep things like if you take a show like what you've not seen, 24. Okay. That is a show about a 24-hour period, right?
Mm-hmm.
And Jack Bauer plays this FBI. Actually, he was not even an agent, but he's this hero that he used to be an FBI agent or something like that. Actually, he was security for the president or something like that. And each episode is 1 hour of that 24 hours, and every episode was a cliffhanger. And you couldn't wait for the next one. And that was before streaming, right? So, I mean, you had to wait a week to find out if Jack Bauer, dies or if the president dies or if whatever, I mean, it was nuts, right? It was cool. Mm-hmm. But with Discovery, that the problem of Discovery, and we're not talking really about Discovery, but we're just making some comparisons here. Mm-hmm. The problem of Discovery is the lack of character development of your back characters.
Yeah.
So like they did a great job with Saru, his character development, and all his stuff regarding his homeworld and his species and his fear and his how his ganglia.
But he's a main character.
Right, and he's a main character. And Berman, and so they did a good development of her. And then her captain before her, Giorgio, right? Mm-hmm. And so they did all that, but they spent so much time on that
they never got. And then when they got to the side characters, it was just I had a bad childhood, and then that was it.
Right, that's the whole don't show. Or don't tell.
Yeah,
it's like I had a bad childhood and my feelings are hurt and I'm affected by it. And it was like a 30-second overview. Oh, well, thanks for telling me that. And then they went on to the main plot again.
Yeah, and it was
huh?
only in this season that they actually were like, oh, shoot, we need to do background, backgrounds for the other characters, but they didn't have enough time, so they just shoved it in there. Right. And so when it comes to Strange New Worlds, they're taking their time on all of the characters and their backgrounds, and yeah.
Right. So, like, I can't remember all the characters' names for Strange New Worlds.
Well, we've only had one season so far.
But you care about them all, right? I mean, because Kirk, or not Kirk, but Pike, right?
Spock, and then
Spock.
The one that has brown hair.
The one that has brown, number one, right?
Number one, yeah.
Number one.
And then
Dr.
And then Uhura.
And Uhura, right? Mm-hmm. Which they've done an awesome job.
I know, and it's so cool that they brought her back too.
Right. And then M'Benga, the doctor, right, with his daughter and Stasis, right?
Yep.
And then so that's 5 characters.
And then
the engineer guy, the Andor. He wasn't really Andorian, but he was kind of like an Andorian knockoff. Not knockoff.
Knockoff.
Not knockoff. But I mean, was he Andorian?
Yeah, he was Andorian.
Oh, and then
he was just like a albino.
I can't remember his name right now, but
yeah.
again, we should have these things pulled up. But then I mean they killed him off, which I think was a bold move, right?
We should probably also say that in the beginning of our podcast, spoilers, because
Oh yeah, don't listen to this
Don't
if you
listen.
haven't seen any of it.
only if you've watched all of it, because we're gonna be talking
So
about
maybe
the
I'll
entire
I'll
thing.
throw something at the beginning here that
Just
FYI, spoiler alert. So yeah, okay. But anyway, so they knock off the chief engineer, which I thought was a bold move, and they even developed his story in the back end.
Yeah.
And then you're like, oh,
They get you attached to the character
immediately in one season.
and then by the time, yeah, exactly, and then you will, because like if they don't do any character development for the character and then kill them off, you're not gonna care.
Right.
But they had to do serious character development so that way you would feel sad.
Right.
And so that's why they have done so well in character development, because they thought this through like a lot.
Right.
For this show.
So from from the perspective of us watching it, right? So you're in set design and costume design.
I'm also, although I am also in cinematography, script and screenwriting, and
yeah,
a lot. I'm in a lot of different categories, but yes.
Right. And mostly I'm focused on the acting. I kind of enjoy the, behind the scenes camera work, right? But I don't get to do much of that. So mostly my thing is acting. So from your perspective, so the thing that I'm curious about, when I was watching Star Trek: The Next Generation, right? When that came out, it was a brand new ship. It was the 23rd century versus the 22nd century, right? For Kirk and Spock, and then Picard and Riker, right? All those characters. And so it was easy to make the jump because the ship design was different, everything was updated, right? And then we had Star Trek Enterprise, which a lot of people didn't like because, okay, this is before, this is the Enterprise.
Well, people were like, yeah, this is really weird. Why does it look like this, even though it's like way before the Enterprise? And they were wondering why it had more buttons and why it looked, I think, techier.
Yeah, techier. It was updated, yeah.
And I was like, well, if you think about it, if you look at airplanes, right, way back in the day, and you look at them now, there's significantly more buttons and controls. So why wouldn't there be more buttons and controls for, older Star Trek ships?
But Enterprise, I see what you're saying. I see what you're saying. But Enterprise came before. That Enterprise was before
the original series.
Before the original series. So there was, the people didn't really like the fact that things were updated because that ship was before Kirk's ship and Strange New World ship, right? So my question, though, what I'm trying to get to is, so now you look at Strange New Worlds, right?
Yeah.
And you look at the bridge design and you look at everything. Do you feel like it's acceptable to have some updated stuff that wasn't in the original show when you were watching it?
Well,
because it is updated, right?
Yeah, but but the main point is that they get the sounds the same, right? The sounds are the same, and the color scheme is the same, exact same color scheme.
Yeah.
And I mean, the things that they have that are updated are very minor, compared to the old series, but overall they have the same ship noises, the same basic controls, the same concept for those controls, and the same color palette, which I really appreciate, that they had the same color palette of red, yellow, and blue. And they kept the design of the clothing similar to the original series. They kept the doorways and the basic design of the ship, the same.
Yeah.
And it looks less... It looks less like it was made in, the 60s?
Yeah, right.
Because it's not made in the 60s. It's made in the 2000s. So it's going to look different because things have evolved. We have better technology. We have better equipment. So
I think there's two things going on. So I think maybe there's only one thing going on. I think it would be less of a show if they made the bridge and everything the same as the old show.
Because they
It'd
would
be
already
cool.
know. What it
I
looks
mean,
like.
the first episode would have been all like, "Oh, hey, cool callback to the old show." But then if you had to go through that every episode, you're gonna be like, I don't know.
This is like the exact same thing.
Right. Well, and I mean, but you'd be like, okay. I mean, I liked the old Enterprise, but I kind of want people. I don't think it would catch on as fast because
Yeah.
people would want to see something just
New.
new, right? Because
But
we
people
live
who
with
have
this
seen-
technology now.
Yeah, but people who have seen the original series and want the nostalgia of the original series and
There's enough of it here to call back. You think?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Because I mean, original colors, like I said, because I mean the color palette is, the primary colors, and so
Right.
That's a very unique color palette
Right.
that I personally really like, and so they have that, and that's kind of all what matters because that's all your brain thinks about is same colors.
All right. So let's talk about the acting side of this. So let's talk about Spock.
I was just about to say that.
Yeah, right. Because
Phenomenal
Spock,
actor.
well, because it could be divisive, right, or divisive, however you want to say it, potato. But so that could be a very tricky thing because Leonard Nimoy. I mean, when you think of Spock,
You think of
you think of Leonard Nimoy, right? I mean,
yeah.
he is Spock.
he is Spock, yes.
But so, how do you think this new guy, and I should really have his name up by now, but I don't. How do you think he's doing as Spock?
I mean, considering the fact that he studied how to play Spock for weeks
Yeah.
before the show, I mean, he was dedicated to this role and he plays it extremely well. He gives off the quirkiness and the oddness of Spock and the complexity between the fact that he's a Vulcan and human, where the Spock in the other movies.
Right, the Kelvin timeline.
Yeah,
as they
the
call
Kelvin
it.
timeline. That Spock,
Zachary Quinto, yeah.
he was okay, but he didn't give me Spock vibes, because he was just, it was right. But this Spock, I mean, he does a really, really, really good job at just being Spock.
Right, and his name is Ethan Peck, by the way. That's who
Okay.
plays Spock. And hang on, I'm trying to find out who. Right, so sorry, bad
But-
podcasting.
But it's hard to explain, but he does such a good job at the complexity between being human and being Vulcan and his emotions and suppressing his emotions, and the episode with him and what's her name?
Christine Chapel?
Yeah.
Yeah, Nurse Chapel. Right.
And that whole situation, he showed Spock so well through all
So
of
here's
it.
what I really like about that, because in the original series, if you remember,
Yes,
Nurse Chapel always had a crush on Spock, right?
definitely.
And this really goes back and kind of explains maybe why that happened, right? Why when they get to the Enterprise with Kirk and they're still still on the same ship, why she had that crush on him.
Yeah.
So I love that they're developing some of this old stuff that, really the whole Christine Chapel Spock thing could have just been a throwaway thing.
Yeah.
Right? But they took some of that and they explored it a little bit. And that's what I love about this show is that they're exploring these things that, oh yeah, I remember that. Or yeah, I remember that. I mean, they're taking some of the most random things that back in the 60s we could have just thrown away.
But they're
right?
bringing it back.
And bringing it back
Little
and then-
Easter eggs.
and creating a story around it, right? And creating reasons for why these things happen.
Spock has a wife in this series. Did he have a wife in the original series?
Yeah, because if you remember the show called Amok Time, I think it was called Amok Time, where Kirk has to remember Spock kind of goes crazy on the Enterprise because he's going through Ponfar.
Oh yeah.
And then he had to fight Soran for T'Ping because he'd been gone for so long that T'Ping to ping.
The ping
I
the
sound
pow.
like I'm dropping. I sound like I'm dropping silverware at this point. But so, when he fought for her, and then he ended up. Don't say it. And so he ended up like giving up because he couldn't kill Kirk, right?
Yeah.
And so he ended up like giving to Ping he ended up giving Soran the honor to have her as his wife.
Mm-hmm.
So she was married to him at the time. So yes, she's always T'Pring. It's T'Pring.
T'Pring?
Yes.
Okay. Because like I did not know that, or other than, because there was moments where he would find ladies
What do you say?
like Spock. Like,
Kirk found the ladies.
well, yeah, of course Kirk did. That was his whole personality. But but Spock, like, there was episodes where he would meet some princess or something, and then it never happened. Like, oh no, I can't do that.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and
don't
so
remember
that's why
this.
I'm like, he had a wife. So I mean, there was definitely back and forth with characters for him too. So I don't know. So, and then it also kills me knowing that he has a wife and knowing that him and Nurse Chapel are never gonna probably get together because of that. So, unless there's something they're planning on, otherwise they're just like dangling this in our face, like, haha, ha ha ha.
Yeah, right. Well, and it's unlikely that they'll get together because that would break canon, or that would break.
That would break, yeah, that would break the canon series, so it can't happen, but.
Okay, so what else about Strange New Worlds do you like?
I like the cinematography. The cinematography is really good.
Okay, so explain what about the cinematography do you like?
The lighting. They do really well with the lighting. It's soft lighting. It's because in
It's not the J.J. Abrams of flares.
but like in some of the Star Trek shows, I think that their lighting's really harsh and they don't pay attention to the lighting. Whereas Strange New Worlds, it's like very softened, especially the scene with Pike in the snow.
Trying to remember. Oh yeah.
It that wide shot was really
Yeah.
good.
Yeah.
It was very cinematically pleasing. And then there's also just his house in general had really warm lighting, really warm tones. The Enterprise has like different locations that give off different vibes because of the lighting.
Yeah. So like sick bay is mostly white and
Mostly
kind of gives
white,
up that
yep.
sterile, bright white tone.
Mm-hmm.
And the bridge kind of has that orange, cast to it. And
Yeah.
engineering kind of has the blue, kind of red. I can't remember engineering too well. Engineering is way different than what I'm used to in this one, So it'd be interesting to see how. We haven't seen much of the engineering bay, right?
No, not much of it. No,
Yeah,
it's like
all we saw was that one area where Hammer is the engineer's name, by the way. I figured that out.
him.
Hammer ended up dying there because of what was the species that was overtaking. He got an infection on that
Yeah,
planet.
yeah.
Yeah.
And
By
then
the
he
way, spoilers.
went "Wee-hoo," off the
Spoilers.
ship. Yeah, I mean, if you haven't watched it, you're.
Yeah. If you haven't watched it, don't listen to this podcast. And now that you're already 23 minutes into it, I'm sorry. So, the cinematography is really good, and in some respects, I think it's I think it's better than Discovery because I feel like sometimes Discovery is just
Too good.
too
It's like too sharp.
sharp. It's a little
And-
too much action too all the time.
Yeah, I feel because the only cinematography I really like in that show is like the scene on that one planet, on Book's planet. That cinematography was really
the
good.
nature, yeah, the living planet, yeah.
Because
Well,
it gave
all
us a
planets.
sense of calm for once.
Yeah, I totally agree with that because I feel like on Discovery,
It's just action after
it's
action after action.
and I always feel like we're not here to talk about Discovery today, but I always just feel like things are disjointed a lot, and I feel like I don't know if that's the story is disjointed or if I feel unsettled on that bridge, when I'm watching it. And
So what I think is Discovery doesn't give you that we're a family vibe, whereas
right,
whereas Strange New Worlds,
because that's what we're here to talk about. Yeah.
yes, Strange New Worlds, there's moments where characters are connecting, where Uhura went to dinner, right? And they have that funny moment between them where it's like, oh, you didn't have to wear that, but I told you
Right,
to.
because she's wearing her dress uniform.
Yep.
And it's,
And so there's like this like inside joke that we don't know about, but we're being told about it, and we're being shown that that inside joke exists, and then you know that the characters have a relation, and then you have like these moments that are outside of the main plot to show you like they have a life.
yeah,
you know?
and that's the thing with Discovery. I don't feel like the only relationship I understand really is the one between Book and Uhura, or not Uhura, but Berman, right? That's the only relationship I really feel like I understand, and I don't feel like Saru has a relationship other than with the Vulcan or ambassador.
That lady, and even that was
that was
not
kind of
stretched upon very much.
right.
But so opposed to how Discovery is when it comes to Strange New Worlds, because I honestly feel like Strange New Worlds is the recovery of Discovery.
The recovery of Discovery. It's the recovery of Discovery. You know what? That is probably the best tagline right there. Strange New Worlds, the recovery of Discovery.
Because it really is. Like, the first season of Discovery is great, and the second and third were just so bad, in my
Right.
opinion. And so when we got Strange New Worlds, I was like expecting it to be mediocre, but then it was so good. So
even the first episode was.
when we keep relating back to Discovery, it's because Discovery came out, then it was Strange New Worlds, and it's just such a big shocker between to whoa. So
Right. So what do you think about? Let's go into music now, right? So the Strange New Worlds theme.
oh, it's so good.
Is it not
It's just
awesome?
It's just enough of the old, but like a little bit
So
of the new.
the thing is, for those who haven't seen it yet, or haven't seen all of it, but it starts off kind of feeling a little Star Trekky, right? And then kind of goes into a little bit of like
A mix of both.
a mix of both, but kind of more like it felt like some of that James Horner Star Trek 2, Star Trek 3 kind of theme, and then at the end, it's that little end, a little bit that just gives me that tingle down my spine every time, because it's that last little bit at the end that is the complete callback to the original series, and I'm just like every time.
Every single time.
In fact, most of the time, like with Discovery, I'll skip over the intro.
We
right?
never ever skip. Like, we skipped over a lot of intros over Star Trek days, but
we do not skip to start Strange New Worlds, because it's just there's that little bit at the end where you're just like, oh, it's the callback, it's the callback. It's just really awesome. So
I feel like after this episode, we need to do an episode about Discovery, because we talked about it so much.
well, yeah, we could say,
And then just have the two
think of a
episodes
title. I've got some titles in my head right now. None of them are appropriate.
Yeah.
So yeah, no, I mean, yeah, maybe we should do Discovery after this. So just so we're not going to always do Star Trek. We'll do Star Wars. We'll do other. We're going to do. So are we done? Well, before I go further, are we done with Strange New Worlds?
Well, let me think, because there's just so many aspects about Strange New Worlds. Because there's also the whole, what are they called? Lizard people?
Lizard people.
They brought the
Gorn.
They brought the Gorn back.
They brought the Gorn back, and they even explained Gorn pods and how Gorn podlings and how, yeah.
Yeah, they brought all of that. They explained literally all of that.
Like another throwaway species, right?
Exactly.
You just had one Gorn in the original series. You never saw them in the Next Generation, Deep Space Nine, or anything, or Voyager. Well, Voyager was out in the Delta Quadrant anyway. But yeah, they brought the Gorn back, which is, I'm just like, what? The Gorn? Awesome. Yeah.
And they even explained backstory with the Gorn with
Right.
number one.
Right.
And I'm
Right.
like,
Oh, and even number one's character, right? So like,
yeah.
number one is like is a not good podcasting when you can't remember the name. She's a enhanced human, which is against Starfleet protocol, right?
Oh, yeah. I forgot about that.
Right. And then the other thing that we haven't
Well,
talked
no,
about.
that's not number one.
Yeah, it is.
No, it's not.
Yes, it
Oh,
is.
wait, no, it is number one.
Yes,
So
but also you have
not number one then. It's the other girl.
yeah, you have Laan Noonien Singh, who is a descendant of Khan,
Yeah.
right?
So there's just like this
There's
whole
just so much-
backstory of everybody.
Right.
And then you have you even have I think you even have a backstory with Nurse Chapel.
Right. Oh yeah. I
And
think we're
then-
gonna get more of that too.
The only person that we haven't really gotten a backstory on, from what I can remember, is the girl with short hair. Got her name?
Yeah. So she plays Ortegas.
Yeah,
Yeah, we haven't seen much of her backstory,
that's like the only
but
one.
I'm pretty sure that's coming.
Did we? Am I missing any other male characters?
Male characters. Well, we lost Hemmer.
Mm-hmm.
He died. So they're gonna have to replace the chief engineer. So who do you think? Do you think they're gonna bring in a
Are they gonna
Scotty?
bring back Scotty?
Oh, I don't know, Captain.
Oh, if they bring back Scotty, I'm gonna be so happy. Did we see something about that, or were we just talking about
They
it?
made a reference to it,
Yeah.
but they didn't quite say it.
What did they say as the reference?
I can't remember now. The other thing is that Kirk's brother
Oh yeah, Kirk's brother
is
is.
in this show too. And his name is
Isn't it like? Is it Andy?
Robert Kirk.
I
Is
was
it
way
Robert
off.
Kirk? I can't remember. But he's actually in the original series. Kirk's brother. He ends up dying. You know, he's on a planet where that gets invaded, and Kirk's brother dies, which is a really weird episode because Kirk sees his brother and is like completely not emotionally attached to it at all. Like, oh, it's my brother. He's dead. Spock. The mission must go on, Spock.
Oh, it's my brother.
It's my brother.
He's dead.
He's dead,
Hey,
Jim.
Spock.
Yeah, Bones. He's dead, Jim. And Kirk looks at him, and then you forget about it, the whole thing after that, right? So it's like it's kind of weird. So this is another one of those throwaway moments where they're bringing him back. They're actually creating a character
Yeah.
off of a throwaway moment, and that's what's really cool about Strange New Worlds. Okay, all right. So we're at 34 minutes, so we should probably think about our time here. So anyway, we'll be talking about maybe Discovery next time, but other things we'll talk about, some Star Wars, like The Mandalorian, Boba Fett, Star Wars, Doctor Who.
For
We'll
sure.
talk about
Stranger Things.
Stranger Things. We're going to talk about Wednesday.
Which
And-
we both need to finish it first.
You haven't finished Wednesday yet.
Not yet.
Okay, we'll be talking about Wednesday. We're going to be talking about a lot of shows that we both like together. And you know, if Ariana,
If you like shows, then you should
if you
listen
get
to
ahead
this
in
podcast.
X Files, we can talk about X Files, but that
That's
might be a
true.
while.
Yeah, got 7 seasons ahead of me.
Yeah, so we got lots of shows we can talk about. All these things kind of
Loki. Loki's a good one.
Loki.
Because I know a lot of people like Loki, and
Yeah.
there's a lot of people that hate Loki too. So
Yeah, so so we'll be talking about some Marvel stuff, Marvel movies, Marvel TV shows. Basically, you know, the things that interest us about acting and movies and shows and stuff like that. So
we more so talk. We talk about shows more than we do movies. I mean, there are some movies that we'll probably talk about, but we more so talk about shows and like, oh, what's the new season gonna be like, and
right.
predictions and stuff.
Yep. Yep. Cool. All right. Well, that's going to end our podcast today. You can find us on YouTube, and I'll put links in the show notes for this. We'll have other ways for you to reach us, to email us, or just get us on Facebook or whatever eventually as we get more developed here. But thanks for listening, and we will shout at you later. Thank you.
Goodbye.
Bye-bye.